Back to the Skype machine. He is Falls Church's finest heel hook extraordinaire, black belt with big-ass nostrils. My friend and yours, the one and only Ryan Hall. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Hey, Luke, I'm doing good. It's a low bar to clear, but we try to do it.
Are you still on the West Coast? Where are you?
Yeah, it's pretty early here. I'm just waking up at the crack of dawn. So, yeah, I'm in L.A. still.
All right. How are you feeling after Saturday? That has to be one of the more thrilling victories of your general combative career, no?
Yeah, it was really, I feel it was really neat to get to compete against BJ. I feel very happy to have had the opportunity. Yep.
Folks have asked me this, and I guess the answer is I'm not, but I want to know what you make of it. The speed with which he tapped. I think some folks, they say in their mind, BJ Penn, first American to win the world championships. If he was going to tap, it would take some long, pronounced battle, and it didn't. And I know you have a simple answer for that, I'm sure, but to that question, how would you answer it?
I'd say you can never be sure quite what to expect. I wasn't under the impression that BJ was likely to tap, but it just we ended up getting caught pretty quickly, and the heel hook was on pretty tight. So ultimately people have to make a choice there, but that it was absolutely a deep submission, and I guess I wasn't expecting him to tap, but anybody could.
Now, can you walk me through how you did it? You faked a kick. As you brought it back, you got into a shooting position. It looked like you were shooting. Then you did an Imanari roll. From there, can you walk me through how you finished it? Because it looked like you trapped the far side leg, so he kind of fell over and landed on his hands. And then from there, it was basically all she wrote.
Yeah, you're always trying to stop people from being able to mount the defense that they'd like to, and obviously a guy like BJ has phenomenal defense in general, and particularly when he gets on top is incredibly dangerous. So I was just doing my best to mitigate, those things, and of course the punching issue is a big deal in mixed martial arts. It's a huge difference from the way that things are often done in jiu-jitsu. So keeping him facing in a direction where he's not necessarily able to crack me upside the mouth, even if it goes wrong, was pretty important. But it just happened to work out, and I was glad to get the outcome.
The way he rolled, was he supposed to roll with the bite or against it? And here's what my ask on this is. I know you can do either, right? You can roll with the bite, or you can try and get your foot to the ground and then try to stand, right? So, but by the time he landed, he had his hands planted and his heel was already in the air. I guess I'm asking you to put yourself in his position. Was it better to roll, or was it better to come back face forward, albeit it didn't really matter in the end?
I'd say it kind of depends on the situation. I think that if you look in slow-mo, you'll see he tried to kick my grip. He didn't really try to roll. It was he turned. Well, he kind of sort of tried to roll, but mostly he was facing back to kick at my grip, and his foot slipped off and wasn't able to make contact that he was looking for. And I thought that was a good defense that he was trying to mount. And ultimately, when things get locked in tight, in any submission, you're always a little bit up against it as the defensive person, but it's not as if I've seen some of the narratives that he made some sort of colossal error and doesn't know how to defend a footlock, and I don't think that's fair to BJ, and I don't believe that to be accurate.
Yeah, I don't think it's accurate either. It was just a little surprising, I think, in the end. We had never seen BJ tap, and not only did he tap, it was lightning quick. It just sort of it's shocking, and I think a lot of people are trying to process that and coming to different conclusions as a consequence is all.
Right.
You said something after the fight that you never told me, which I thought was kind of interesting. You left jiu-jitsu before you thought you had really had a moment to peak, right? Before you really thought you had your best to offer. Is that right?
Oh, that's absolutely true. I left well before I was good enough to do the things that I wanted to do, but I knew that I'd only have the opportunity really to be at my best in one of the two sports, and I elected to try to go to mixed martial arts because I wanted to learn how to fight for real. I wanted to be able to see if my skills would be able to translate into a more real arena, and particularly as jiu-jitsu has gotten further and further away from what mixed martial arts is and what I believe martial arts to be truly at its core. I feel very, very happy to have made the decision that I did.
How old were you when you made the more or less full-time commitment to MMA?
I was 27 years old, and I'd competed in ADCC the year prior, and I knew that ultimately I was behind the eight ball when it came to learning striking, learning other things. I could already wrestle okay, nowhere near as well as now, but but by jiu-jitsu standards, I could wrestle all right, but it wasn't going to be enough. Certainly not to the level where you see like the Cobrini is now, where he's put in so much work and whatnot. It's nice to see some people doing that in the jiu-jitsu world, particularly people like, Cobrini, who I look up to a great deal. Yeah, I was 27, and I knew that I couldn't spend my time fiddling around. If you start MMA at 30, it doesn't usually work out great. So I wouldn't have the years for skill development or the years for experience gathering. And, even though it's been a winding road and a lot of years have been taken off out of the ring, unfortunately, I think I've had 4, dropped years almost of non-competition as a result of people not being willing to get into the ring. I've always been training every day and always been working on striking, and I'm glad that I went that route.
What do you make of this? I'm going to ask this question a couple of ways. A lot of people always ask it about. I hear your little one there. I hope everything's okay.
No, it's
but
going great. Yeah, sorry.
No worries. No, don't worry about it. It's quite. She sounds very cute. The point I want to make was as follows. A lot of people make if you could pull the camera up just a little bit, because we can't. All we can do is see your mouth. There, a little more.
Sorry about that.
There it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, we got you. No, you're good. You're good. People make this argument.
I've got a face for radio,
Fair enough, but here's the point. I hear a lot of people make the argument. You hear it from Hoist Gracie all the time. It's like, oh, modern jiu-jitsu sucks. And look, it is what it is. People are going to respond to incentives and rule sets, and that's going to be the thing. I think what's kind of different, though, for me is the professionalization of jiu-jitsu, where you have all of these tournaments outside of the IBJJF circuit that, Keenan Cornelius, for example, he has said openly, yeah, I just really don't need to go into MMA. And I wonder, is that a good thing for jiu-jitsu? Because it allows it to just be itself rather than being some kind of technical applicant to MMA. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm glad to see that there's a venue for people that want to grapple at a very high and professional level to carry on doing that and making money. That wasn't really there when I was there, but I'm much happier fighting. But I know that some people just don't like fighting, and they prefer to grapple and they prefer jiu-jitsu, and I think that's phenomenal. I think that's fine. I'd say the jiu-jitsu has definitely gotten more professional. A lot of things have also just gotten, like, they've got brighter lights and more, flashy shit around, and it gives the impression of higher level and professionalism, which I would take some issue with. But ultimately, it is nice to see guys like Keenan feeling that if he wants to stay in jiu-jitsu, that he can make a good living doing so, and I think that that's great, and it pushes the jiu-jitsu world forward, and it keeps people there. That being said, I feel very fortunate to have come up in a time in jiu-jitsu where mixed martial arts was the end goal, was the thing that you look to. I remember being on teams where you look around and there were some of us that were jiu-jitsu guys and some of us that were MMA oriented, and there was never any disrespect towards the jiu-jitsu side, and that's something that I really enjoyed. I really still love jiu-jitsu very much. But there was always an understanding of, hey, don't get it twisted. There's fighting, and then there's this other thing. There's grappling, and there was never that misconception in my mind that they were one and the same. And as the rule sets, like you said, people will respond to the incentives that are there. Competitors are going to do that, and as well they should. Intelligent competitors will always try to find their way through the holes. But that being said, I'd like to see a little bit more cross-pollination, because just even culturally, jiu-jitsu I find obnoxious at this point.
Yeah, well, it's weird when you go to like a U.S. grappling tournament and people are mean mugging each other. It's like, Steve, you're an accountant.
It's the lamest thing I've ever seen. But the toughest accountant on the row. You know what I mean?
It's like, what the fuck are you doing, guy?
Dude, it's embarrassing. It's pretty embarrassing watching a bunch of grapple nerds act hard. It's very strange.
Let me just ask you this. To the extent you're able to watch competitive jiu-jitsu anymore, who are the guys out there whose styles you really like? Or ladies, too, whichever.
Let's see. Keenan's someone who I think is fantastic, obviously. Gordon Ryan is undoubtedly doing very, very well. He's fun to watch. Let's see. Tanquinho, I enjoy watching as well. Augusto Mendes, he always comes back and forth between grappling and MMA, and it's very, very cool the way he's able to do that at a very high level. And I enjoy the style and the approach. Cobrini has always been one of my absolute favorites. Lucas Lepre, Roger Gracie, but at the current, probably Cobrini and Lucas Lepre, I would say, are probably my favorite guys to watch. But there's always a bunch of people who are interesting. It's just a little bit of the overemphasis on footlocks has gotten a little bit silly because people are missing surrounding skills. And I know I was one of those dudes, but then again, I was competing in ADCC 4 years into training. So I kind of had I had to go with something. But, looking at any technique as if it's sort of like a panacea that can, solve all your problems is a little bit much. But, someone else I never want to forget is Marilla Santana. Obviously one of my favorite people I've ever trained with. Unbelievable technician, unbelievable competitor, and always one of my favorites to watch as well.
And has just a gnarly beard. That beard is just unkempt.
Oh, and he had it before it was cool. It's not one of those like hipster beards where I can't tell if you're going to buy me a latte or if you're a special forces operator or something like that. It's like he had this thing when that's just been there. I think he's probably had it since he was like 6.
Yeah, it just grew. He shaves it, it comes back in 30 seconds. You can't do anything about it.
No, you just don't fight fate, man. You just gotta carry on.
In terms of MMA, same question. Guys who are like jiu-jitsu-y or have good submissions inside MMA, who do you like?
Oh man, let's see. There's a couple guys that I really enjoy watching. I like Aljamain Sterling a lot. I think the way he fights is very cool, very interesting. Obviously, I'm excited to see Kron Gracie come to the UFC. One of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. Fantastic. I'll be very interested. I'll watch that with a lot of anticipation. In MMA, on the way up, it was BJ Penn and Kenny Florian, people that I love to watch. Minotauro. The UFC's got some other great jiu-jitsu guys as well. Like now, Davi Ramos, his ADCC champion, is up there, is as tough as anybody. So it's interesting. Brian Ortega has been doing very, very well, and again, being influenced by the kind of the Gracie Torrance style is very cool as well. It's nice to see that making a comeback. There's a lot to be excited about, I feel like, from a grappling perspective, in both the grappling world and the MMA world, and it's a neat time to be around.
Did you wrap your hands for that fight?
I wrap my hands in about the loosest sense of the term.
Now, why do you do that?
I don't know. It seemed like the thing to do. It makes me feel cool. Other than that, I'm not spending. I remember my first MMA fight. I felt like my hands were wrapped so well that I felt like I could punch a brick wall, which was great. Only that wasn't really part of the plan. And I remember snatching up a toe hold. And granted, that was a garbage grappler at that time. It was like 2006, and I found myself in a pro MMA fight without realizing I was going to be in a pro MMA fight until earlier that afternoon. Thanks, coach. But let's see. I actually couldn't flex my wrists, to apply any pressure. But that was an interesting experience. But yeah, as I've gotten a little bit more time in the ring, I'm starting to understand kind of what I like and what I'm shooting for. And at least from a grappler's perspective, I think I'd rather have a little bit more dexterity in my limbs than ability to punch the floor that I hope to not punch anyway.
You have a very interesting style, Ryan, for MMA, which is that a lot of people just sort of take a strategy of I have to bite the bullet to make things happen. And to be clear, there are conditions you have to establish in order to get to certain spaces. But I guess what I'm saying is you don't spend a lot of time trading on the feet. You'll trade under certain contexts, but it seems like you put a high, and understand, I'm not asking this from a disparaging context, more from just a metagame analysis.
Oh.
You don't spend hardly
hurt my feelings.
Yeah, you don't spend hardly any time worrying about I need to be in a position where I got to bite down on the mouthpiece and get into range. It seems to me, have made a game where it has built into the idea of minimal damage possible, maximal submission threat, something like that.
Pardon me. I think that's accurate, and I feel like that's what I'd say most of us are shooting for. Someone I really enjoy watching, a couple of guys I really enjoy watching in the UFC are Stephen Thompson, of course, is unbelievable and has taught me a great deal, and Israel Adesanya as well, who obviously everyone is gaining, he's gaining a ton of attention and rightly so. If I could strike like them, I would do it because they get in there and they don't you don't hit them, they hit you. And I'm shooting for the same thing. It's just one of those things where I'm a couple years into my striking development. They're 15 to 30 years into their striking development. And, I think any of us try to play with the tools that we have and we go where we feel that we're the strongest. But I think that there's a lot of, maybe I wouldn't say misconceptions, but ideas out there in MMA about how things have to be done. Maybe this is how life works, I guess. And I'm not saying that, that I've got the magic tricks of figuring all this out. But people take for granted that you have to fight a certain way, that you have to bite down to your mouthpiece. Obviously, there's certain circumstances wherein that is the only option, and that's the right thing to do. But going in there and doing the full-on charge thing right from the jump seems to me to be a little bit little bit short-sighted if that's not what's required at the time, to say nothing of the fact that there's going to be a significant physical toll for you. But something else to consider, I think, is that some guys and some girls are just incredibly durable. And I think that that's something that they make work for them. That's amazing. I'm a huge fan of like, fighters like Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, who I think are phenomenal. It's amazing to watch. I love what they do. And they make their strongest assets, their skills, their durability, their toughness, their grit. They make all of that count for them. And I think that's fantastic. I think, though, that, I came up in a different way and with a different set of skills and a different approach. And any of us, and that's the cool thing about MMA, are allowed to make things work for us, because under the rule set that exists, it's so open. It's like war. What's the goal? Win. How? I don't know. Just do it.
You staying at lightweight or no?
Absolutely not. I'll be going back to featherweight. But if there's anybody really interesting at lightweight, I would always be happy to fight. But I weighed in, without cutting any weight below the lightweight limit. So I think that featherweight would be more prudent.
Yeah. And then I suppose in thinking about this, you had a 2-year layoff, and, we talked at various intervals about what was happening, but you got a nice win. You got a nice bonus, which means that the UFC liked what you put in. You beat a legend name. If you look at the numbers for what you have done on various videos, they're higher than a lot of your contemporaries from Saturday night. Do you feel like that chapter of maybe being kind of ignored by some of your potential opponents is behind you? Like, did this raise the profile enough that you become an attractive target for another hungry fighter?
I'm not really sure. If I'm honest, I'm not really sure. I have no idea what the future holds. I'll do my best regardless, and I hope to fight the best people available, but I will stick to my guns the same way I have. I don't fight bums. I don't waste my time. I'm looking for very, very difficult challenges. I know that they are out there, and I hope that they will be willing to turn up the way BJ did. And I've gotten through my first UFC fights more or less unscratched, but I know that that's not a trend that can continue forever, and I'm willing to, face what comes, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. But ultimately, it's just one of those things, just like in jiu-jitsu. I said it in an interview the other day. Even when I was in the jiu-jitsu world, I wasn't anywhere near where I'm at now, experience or skill-wise, but I was still good enough to beat anybody on the right day. And it was a frustrating thing because I felt like I didn't get a fair shake in a lot of situations, and certain things were actually full on taken out of my hands. And that doesn't mean I couldn't have done anything better, because I certainly could have. But again, you play with the tools and the skills that you have at the time, and what I had at the time wasn't adequate for the circumstance. And anyway, it's the same thing here. There's a lot. All I can control is how I train, how I approach the game, and how I compete when I'm given the opportunity to do so. And when I'm given the opportunity to do so, if that happens again, I look forward to bringing my best.
Well, I know you keep the mean streets of Falls Church, Virginia, nice and safe from all the other middle-class folks.
Someone has to do it. Oh yeah, dude, exactly. There's this lady, she's probably in her 50s, but I'll tell you what, she's a problem. And someone has to keep it all in check.
Well, I leave that difficult job to you and your lovely wife. Please give her my best as well. Congrats on the win. Congrats on being back. Congrats on the bonus. It's great to see you, Ryan, and I can't wait to see what you got in store for us for 2019. Happy New Year, sir.
Thanks so much, Luke. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. There he is, Ryan Hall, one of the best to ever do it.